Deshaun Watson of the Cleveland Browns suffered a non-contact lower leg injury today that was severe enough that required him to actually be carted off of the field. At the time of this video, we don't know the specific injury that he is in fact dealing with. However, we do know that he has been ruled out for the remainder of the game, and there is a camera angle that looks like we see a recoiling going through his calf musculature. Anytime a player is going to be ruled out that quickly for the remainder of a game is never a good sign. And on top of that, the fact that we actually do see what looks like a recoiling on the calf musculature makes this injury seem like it's very consistent with an Achilles injury. So with today's video, I want to go ahead and take a look at the injury replay. We'll go ahead and we'll talk about the relevant anatomy of the Achilles tendon, talk about what can lead to these types of injuries, and we'll go over a best and worst case scenario. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my channel. If you're not familiar with me, my name is Nick Gallo and I'm a doctor of physical therapy. And with my channel, I take a look at sports injuries and I explain them so that they are a little bit easier to understand. I'll also go over the pertinent anatomy for that specific injury. And finally, I'll also talk about what that person should expect moving forward in the rehab process. If you enjoy this sort of content and you want to see more of it, please hit that thumbs up and subscribe to this channel because I will be making more of these videos in the future regarding sports injuries, rehabilitation, and other physical therapy related content. Also, if you have any comments or questions, please leave those in the comment section below. Here we see that as Watson drops back, he's going to plant with that right foot. As he does this, he's going to seem like he's on balance and he's going to fall to the turf. As we zoom in closely here, as soon as he plants, once again, we're going to see what looks like a recoiling going through that calf musculature. Here I have a model of the foot and ankle. And so for injuries like this, the pertinent structure that we're going to talk about all the time is going to be the Achilles tendon. And so the Achilles tendon, it's important to know that there are three main muscles that are located within this lower leg here. We have the gastrocnemius, which is going to be that big fat calf muscle that all of us refer to as being the calf. Then we have a muscle known as the soleus muscle, which is right underneath of the gastrocnemius. And finally, we have a very tiny muscle known as the plantaris muscle. But all three of them are going to essentially come down here, conjoin together, and they're going to attach onto the calcaneus or the heel bone. And this is going to form that Achilles tendon. The Achilles tendon is a very strong and powerful structure located in the lower leg here. And I want to go over a couple movements at the foot and ankle that the Achilles tendon is involved in. The first one, when those muscles in the calf are contracting, when they do this, they're going to be shortening. And as they do that, that's going to point the toes forward in a position known as plantar flexion. So when a person is going to be sprinting, jumping, things like that, they're going to be flexing those muscles and they're going to be doing an explosive motion just like that. The opposite of that is known as dorsiflexion. So when those muscles are going to be in the stretched position, the toes and the foot are going to be coming back like this in dorsiflexion, and this is going to be actively lengthening and essentially stretching all of those structures. Because once again, all of them form to that Achilles tendon, the Achilles tendon is involved in both of these motions. There are a couple very common ways that a person can injure the Achilles tendon. The first one is going to be any sort of explosive movement, such as jumping, or if they're going to be pushing off onto the turf, that can lead to an Achilles tendon injury, or if a person is going to be pivoting, and essentially any sort of violent movement going through that Achilles tendon. The Achilles tendon is usually made for these types of motions. However, if it just becomes too much for the tendon to handle, then this can lead to an injury. Another way that we see this injury happen is when a person is going to be going into a forceful dorsiflexion, like they're about to explode off. Because it's actively lengthening that Achilles tendon, this can put too much strain, and then contracting it in that stretch position really does put a lot of force going through that tendon. And it looks like in this video, that seems to be the mechanism. As Watson drops back, he's going to plant and that foot's going to go in some dorsiflexion, and then he's going to try to accelerate forward. And that's unfortunately when we see that recoiling. There's an in the clinic test that we can do to help rule in an Achilles injury, and this is known as the Thompson test. And so the Thompson test, what we're going to do here is we're going to have the person lie prone and their foot and ankle are going to be hanging off of the table. And when we do this, what we're doing is we are going to be squeezing that calf musculature. And as we do this, this is essentially going to be doing a little bit of flexing of those muscles. And so a normal Thompson test, what we would like to see is as we are squeezing those calf muscles, we're going to see the foot move into plantar flexion. If we do this and we don't see any or very minimal movement at this foot compared to the non-injured side, then this makes us think that there is in fact a rupture going through that Achilles tendon. Something else that is very indicative, obviously, of an Achilles tendon rupture is that as we run our fingers down the back of that person's calf and we're going along that Achilles tendon, if we happen to feel a rut or a divot where essentially it feels like that tendon just drops right off, that also makes us believe that they are dealing with a full Achilles rupture. Now, the gold standard for this type of an injury, of course, is going to be the MRI. And there is a grading system for these tendon injuries. They are grades 1, 2, and 3. In a grade 1 Achilles injury, you're getting basically some overstretching and very minimal tendon fibers that are involved. In a grade 2, you're getting significantly more tendon fibers that are involved in a tear. However, it's not a complete rupture, so we classify this as a partial tear. And finally, in a grade 3, this is where you're going to be getting a full rupture of that Achilles tendon. Obviously, it is the worst case scenario. So the MRI is going to tell us the specific grade of the Achilles injury if the Achilles is in fact implicated in this injury, because as of right now, we don't know the specifics. But something else that could be going on here is a calf strain. These calf strains are less severe, however, they do tend to linger, and they also have a grading system. So they are grades 1, 2, and 3, and you pretty much follow the same rules. So with a grade 1, you're getting stretching and you're getting minimal muscle fibers that are torn. In a grade 2, this is where you're getting a partial tear of the affected muscle. And in a grade 3, this is where you get a full rupture. We have seen injuries in the past where we see this recoiling go through the calf musculature, and it comes out to be a grade 1 or a grade 2 calf strain. The most common calf muscle that's involved in these calf strains is going to be the gastrocnemius. And this is because the gastrocnemius actually crosses two joints in the lower leg. So it's going to cross that knee joint, and it's also going to cross that ankle joint. So as of right now, if I had to make a guess, the fact that it looks severe enough and he had to be carted off, I would say it looks like the Achilles is implicated, but it is important to say that you can't just totally dismiss the muscle, because we have seen in the past where the muscle was injured and not the tendon. Whether or not this injury turns out to be muscle or tendon, a grade 3 is obviously going to be the worst case scenario because you're getting a full rupture of the affected structure. Usually this is going to require surgical intervention, and unfortunately Watson would miss the remainder of the season. It's a very lengthy recovery and it takes several months. If it's a grade 2, this can make him miss a couple months. It really depends on the severity of the partial tear. Now, if an Achilles does have a partial tear, sometimes they will elect to have surgery because a lot of times it's not going to heal properly because that area is essentially not getting a lot of blood flow to accelerate that healing. So if it happens to be something along those lines, there is a possibility of surgery. And obviously a grade 1, this is going to be the best case scenario. We get grade 1 injuries a lot of time in the clinic, and as soon as they happen, we like to follow that acronym RICE, where R stands for rest, I stands for ice, C stands for compression, E stands for elevation. What we're going to do here is we want to try to pump out as much swelling and inflammation as possible. And then when the person is appropriate, we start to work in some range of motion exercises, we start to work in strength and stability. And then as everything is going along pretty well with the follow-up appointments, we can advance them. So we hope in Watson's case that it's going to be along the lines of one of those lower grade injuries, whether it be the Achilles or the calf musculature. But if I happen to hear any updates, I'll be sure to update everybody in the comment section. And also, if you happen to hear anything, please feel free to update us as well. So we wish Deshaun Watson the best of luck moving forward with this injury. It did look very bad, but once again, in the past, we've seen this recoiling where it ends up not being as severe as initially thought. Thank you so much again for watching my video today. If you really enjoy this sort of content, I'm going to go ahead and link one of my playlists so that you can watch some of the injuries that I've talked about in the past. Thank you again for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.